Greetings, Moonlight Citizens. This is your Moonlight King, the Man on the Moon, with the 112th episode of Moonlight Kingdom Podcast. In a very Marvel-centric episode, this is yet again. I'm joined by a dear friend as we discuss everything from Blade to the new Avengers to the recent Avatar movie that was released over on straight to streaming, Zack Snyder, political campaigns, the Dark Universe, the Sonyverse, and more. In 3, 2, 1. Boom.
Marvel American. I don't think that they're that dumb, and obviously it seems like it because no one seems to have been affected by that rhetoric uttered by Ritson. No one seems to be affected by it because the MCU still seems to be trading along normally, normal enough at least. But I don't know why he thought that would work. I don't know. Maybe it was like a reshot, like it was a reshot ending sequence that they wanted to add some drama. But even from that, the drama didn't really have a lot of impact. Wilson Fisk's utterance of no more vigilantes had more impact than Ritson's declaration on all aliens. So it really is like, it kind of leaves you scratching your head, like what the purpose of it was. But I guess they wanted to build some drama and, have some conflict on the road. But yeah.
Yeah, it had zero impact outside of because the Marvels was the project that was right after that, and there was no mention of what he said, none, except for one scene where they were like, "Oh, the Skrulls have nowhere to live," and because bro, remember we like after that finale aired and we talked about it. One of the first ideas that you brought up was, "Why don't they just go to New Asgard?" And literally in that movie, the fucking Valkyrie comes out of nowhere, opens a portal, and says, "Yeah, we've got a home for you on Earth, on New Asgard." Like, why wasn't that the plan from day one? What the fuck did it
Doesn't
take?
make sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. That should have been Nick Fury's answer from day one. There's no way Nick Fury's that fucking dumb that the Asgardians can just rock up, establish a whole town in the middle of nowhere, and he didn't think, I bet I should think, I should ask if, the Asgardians are okay with having some scrolls on here. Maybe have them do
I
that
mean,
shit too.
Fury could be that dumb if it wasn't Fury, but it was. That's the problem. That's the point. It was Fury. So, you know, it kind of falls flat when it's like, okay, well, the guy who actually made these decisions is no longer like a Talos or a graphic or someone else. It actually was Nicholas. So how smart is Nicholas then, if that's the case?
It's a disaster. That's what it is. Just the whole thing. You can tell Marvel really wanted to sweep that show under the rug.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, because when Brave New World came on, I and they just pretended that guy never existed. Ritson was never a thing. Ross is the new president. No mention of the previous president or any of his policies or his war on aliens. It's all President Ross, and he's campaigning for us all to be together, which isn't a slogan. It's just a word. Together. That's not come together, not stand together, just together. It's okay, but he somehow won on that. But okay.
It probably is a spoof on most American like campaign slogans.
Like Obama with hope.
Hope was nice and clean purely because it was a black guy saying it. So it had like the sort of intrinsic meaning saying, you know what, it's time for a black guy to bring back this thing because it seems like we don't have this thing anymore. And I think it hit very different during that point because again they were under the number one, it was the financial crisis of 2008 and the housing crisis of 2000. Obama inherited a lot of problems now that I think about it. But his slogan, it was very timely. It was very off the time, and it was exactly what people needed. The fact that he won so many counties that are historically red was surprising. Like Obama really, he had no competition, to be honest. When he first won, like, it's crazy how he won so many territories that, Joe Biden and Kamala could not win separately and together. They did not, like, obviously by a portion of numbers, a lot of people didn't vote when it came to the Biden and Trump race. But when it came to the re-election and then Kamala running, a lot of places stayed red. But the fact that Obama actually won those places in 08, Like, there's not a territory that Obama did not win in '08. It was like an embarrassing landslide, and it's still crazy by today's, you know, metrics that it really was a time of great strife, and people wanted something to grasp onto. People across the board, they didn't care who it was; they just needed something to keep them going.
Yeah, that tends to
And
happen.
hope was exactly it.
Yeah, it was exactly what he told them what they needed to hear, and at the same time, it was kind of what they wanted to hear. They wanted a dude who was, giving hope, saying that, hey, yeah, times are tough right now, but we can get out of this. We can be better. It's not a case of, hey, times are tough now, but we can make it great like it was. No, it's not even what's going on now of times are tough right now. Y'all are just gonna have to deal. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the stats now. Obviously, Obama ran against John McCain when he was still relevant.
Yeah.
But
I remember that.
the,
I remember that
the
fucking
total,
that Boondocks episode where they were talking about it, and because it
yeah,
was the granddad, he was one for the other dude, and I remember like it was Huey, and they were like, "Hey y'all, like Barack Obama's running for president. Aren't you excited?" And he just goes, "Eh," and they all looked at him like, "What the fuck do you mean, eh? What's wrong with you?" Oh shit,
exactly. But look
man.
how crazy these numbers are. Obama secured 67.8% of all electoral votes. McCain, on the other hand, running alongside Sarah Palin when she was still being parodied by
SNL, yeah.
Tina Fey, only managed to get 32.2%. That is the biggest landslide if I ever saw one. 67 versus 32%. It's crazy.
And there'll still
But
be motherfuckers
that
out
will
here
never
who
happen
say
again.
he won. Oh, there'll still be people who come out and say like, "Oh, people voted for him because he was black." Like, no, it ain't just that. Granted, it did play a role. It wasn't the only role. Black people didn't just vote for Obama because he was black. Because you can
If that
tell,
was the case,
yeah,
then even Kanye West would have been president
dude,
at that stage. He would have gotten like bare minimum 30% electoral votes from Americans. Bare minimum. But it's not the case.
yeah,
People forget that Obama, number one, went to Harvard. Number two, he was a senator for several years, like for over a decade. He was a senator. Before that, and he was also a congressman. Like, Obama has been in the United States, like he's been in Congress since bare minimum 1997. He has been pushing behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, he was a major player. He was being talked about as like, there's like this young hot kid. A kid who's 30, who's 35, years old. It's not a kid, but for these guys, it's a kid. But there's this kid. He's making waves. He was making waves for like 15 years before he became president. Like it didn't happen overnight. He had a gradual rise, and he happened to be at just the right place in time in history to where he could facilitate a presidential run, presidential campaign.
yeah. In the end, it's all about timing. I mean, I think there was this dude. He said it back in the '90s. Like he was running for mayor. He said, "Guys get made president just by being in the right place at the right time. I just want to be mayor." It's like he ain't wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He's not entirely wrong. There have been several cases where dude was just the right guy in the right place at the right time, regardless of like policies or whatever. You were just the dude in that moment that people wanted to see.
Ironically, I think for the MCU, Ross was only made president because they didn't want to promote the head of the CIA.
Yeah, Valerie.
I also think she's like batshit crazy. Val is generally batshit crazy.
Yeah, no arguments here. Because there was a line in Wakanda Forever where it could be in like, oh, this woman has problems. Because they were like, because they were thinking of laying siege to Wakanda, and then at the time, I guess Ritson was president around then, because the CIA guy, Everett Ross, was like, could you imagine what the U.S. would do if we got our hands on vibranium? And that's when Val said, "Are you kidding? I dream about it." It's like, what do you mean you dream about it? Like, what the fuck? Because right away, the U.S. would be up to some shady shit if they got their hands on a chunk of vibranium And she was like, "Are you kidding? I dream about that." It's like, oh, okay, you're not the kind of person we want running the country, much less the CIA. And yet she was able to, oh, she's now also running the Avengers after the events of the Thunderbolts, because she's like the head of their team, I guess. Oh no, she like
He's
owns,
like
no, she
a
bought the building. She bought the building that they all work
yeah,
in.
that Tony sold in
Yeah.
Spider-Man. I think at the very least, she's like a benefactor. She's like the Nick Fury of this current roster of unofficial, official, because obviously, they're having a go dispute with Sam Wilson's faction. Now, his faction is confusing to me because if you look at it right,
There's not that
Sam,
many people in it. It's just him and Joaquin from,
besides
yeah.
that, right, Sam, it's confusing to me why there's some sort of deliberation or, legal issue. Because Sam Wilson is the contractual Captain America of the American US government, right? Sure, his series came and went, and it's done. He's Captain America, they accepted him. In Brave New World, he is the Captain America serving under the President of the United States. He is working for the government. That, like, he reports to President Ross. Sure, the movie happens. Ross might be incumbent right now. I think it depends because he had a whole hissy fit. But that shouldn't affect Sam's role because Sam is still a Captain America. He is the only Captain America. He is the legal Captain America appointed by the government because apparently, I mean, obviously, realistically, they did appoint the first one in any case. But, it's more of a military position. But, for them, it's a title. But
Depending
besides the
on
point.
which version of Brave New World we're talking about, because there's two different cuts of that movie. There's the one where Ross is like, I want to restart the Avengers, and then there's one where I want to make Captain America a proper military position. So like,
True.
yeah,
But, like, the confusing thing is Ross was the president of the United States, right? Val is the head of the CIA. Cool. Those are both government positions, and they have different succession levels. Ross was obviously before that. He was the head of the. Was he the head of the CIA?
Ross was the
Or was he?
Secretary of State before that, but before that
Yes,
he was just a general in the army.
exactly. So he gets appointed president. Cool. Now he is also. Oh, if we go to Val, Val is again the ex-wife of Everett.
Yeah,
I don't even know what he is now. Is he in Wakanda? Is he in
I
Atlantis? Who
I
knows?
guess he's in Wakanda because they busted him out at the end of that one, and
Yeah, so
yeah,
he's like a fugitive.
yeah,
Now, here's my main confusion. If Sam being Captain America under the US government is legal and sanctioned, and he tells himself that I am creating an Avengers team because the president's going to do so, how does Val then say these are the new Avengers and now two governmentally appointed agencies are fighting over who gets to keep the name? You have the one fucking team, just merge. Like, I don't understand what the issue is. The only issue I might see objectively is the fact that there might be some conflicting personalities in there. For example, maybe Sam doesn't like the fact that maybe he's in a team with, like, I don't know, two Black Widow, well, one Black Widow, assassin or whatever, and one, like, what the hell was Ghost in? Was she
Ghost
in the
was
Red?
from
She was in.
Ant-Man. Like she was an
No, no,
experiment.
like where was she trained? Like, what group was she in?
I This happened between the movies. There's some kind of explanation that like Val found her and that's why she's part of the thing, but that happened off
Yeah,
camera. So
but
it's
now the question, because Ghost is, she's all right now, 30, pushing 40. In the flashbacks, obviously, we see her as a kid, and she was taken in by the government, but what part of the government turned her into this killing machine?
um,
It's weird because the government has so many factions, and so many factions turn you into a killer.
I mean, I
Like,
guess it would have to be Shield because I mean Hank Pym was working with him back in the day.
true, because, Goliath and, Giant Man were partners, I guess, in the 70s. Who the fuck even knows? But they would have had to have been for them to have a falling out that goes beyond the depths of science. But yeah, Ghost is trained by a government shadow organization, but maybe, I guess, Sam has reservations for having assassins on the team, but then he himself is an assassin. I don't really understand what kind of personality clashes there might be besides Walker. But even so, Walker and them kind of had a mutual
Yeah,
trust. Like, they kind of had like a mutual
Yeah,
I don't
man.
really
By the
hate
end
you, but
of
I don't love you. But thanks for saving the day with me. Thanks for helping me. Like they had that kind of like parting agreement. So there's nothing really stopping them from joining, from combining. The real ultimate thing would be who gets to be the leader, because in the former Thunderbolts, the leader was pretty much objectively Bucky because of seniority, but Sam, as a Captain America figure, he might say, "Well, I want to be the leader because I'm Captain America." But even so, like
that's
that's
petty.
it's yeah, it's stupid. I don't understand. Like, well, there shouldn't be two teams. Like, you're both working for the government. Just fucking merge. It's stupid. It really is the most asinine, contrived beef. Because again, we won't even get to see that beef play out because Doomsday, they're all together anyway. Not unless it's like a small thing of, oh, okay, you can see he looks like a bit pissed off, and then he walks away. And he's like, "It's nice to see you too, Sam." And it's stupid shit. It won't matter. The fucking universe is ending. I just
Yeah.
don't understand why it had to be like, implied, and when it'll serve no purpose. I think that's the worst thing in Marvel now, is that they set things up that really have no bearing later whatsoever. Which begs the
Yeah.
question again, on that specific train of thought: where the hell is Clear Doctor Strange? Will they even be in Doomsday? Will they pop up secretly? Will they be part of Secret Wars?
I think with those characters, like characters we are looking at nowadays and asking, where are they? Why weren't they in the trailer? I think they're the Secret Wars roster, because there are
I
so
suppose.
many people across Marvel shows and movies that we look at and go, hey, why aren't they in this movie? They're likely the Secret Wars roster, because I think what's going to happen is this team is going to be defeated, going to get defeated soundly by Doctor Doom, and it's going to culminate in Battle World, and that's where the rest of the Avengers and the other characters are going to come in. Like with Infinity War, except uh, this is going to be different than that in my opinion, but like that's just what I believe. That's why we're only seeing X amount of people in this trailer, and these are the only people that are confirmed for Doomsday, because the rest are being pushed forward to Secret Wars. But then again, that's just a theory.
Because also, you know, for like the longest time, I mean, like 2 years, there has been this leaked plot for Doomsday. I haven't read it. I think I'm tired of. I've kind of reached the point in my life where I'm so tired of spoiler culture, you know, and it probably started right around Infinity War and Endgame. Like, it used to be fun to see spoilers, like, oh, this is gonna happen. But when it got so much traction that it became out of YouTube videos and
Yeah.
YouTube discussions, it kind of took away. It took away like the initial fun that was, oh, is this thing true? Maybe we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
find out. But now
Also, yeah.
everything is being written, everything is being spoken about, and that's really annoying now. It's not even enjoyable anymore. It's just like, oh, okay, so he's gonna release the whole movie, like everything about it. That is aggravating to me.
A worse
So
example would be like when you would go on Twitter and you see the whole movie is just there, like leaked in
yeah,
full HD,
they,
ready for everyone to see. The
they
ultimate
did that
spoiler.
to Avatar. I
Yeah,
think when it comes to real movies, they don't suffer a lot because a lot of movies that are like live action are under heavy studio protection purely because of most movies not completing post production until right before it comes out. Like Spider-Man Brand New Day just completed post production, which is again a little scary. It's a little scary because movies should not have such a short turnover for the last time it was touched to hitting screens. But I digress. But because a lot of movies are still undergoing so many changes live action, they don't have completed copies that can be duplicated or accessed through hacks and domain attacks and DNS hijackings. Because that's literally how the guy in Canada leaked. Like, he literally hacked into Nickelodeon servers, and idiotically enough, they kept the whole movie in. Granted, it had some firewalls, but they kept the movie in a local server that could be remotely accessed by other executives and or people within production. But the whole movie was practically completed. It was like 99.9% completed. The only thing that was, I think they said, incomplete was like one or two visual effects, like 3D kind of like processing, and that's the thing that they were going to fix afterwards. And I think by now they have. But when the whole movie released, like all I think 104 minutes of it. The movie was practically complete. I watched it for like 2 minutes just to confirm, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a problem. This is a real life fuck up, and it's a problem. And it's sad that the only reason why it is there is because it was supposed to immediately drop on streaming. They completely lost confidence in the movie enough to put it in theaters, and it was slated almost immediately upon completion to be a streaming only release.
Yeah.
That is, of course, what made people mad, which prompted this guy to leak all of it. But, that is the problem with a lot of animated stuff. It's so easy to leak it because a lot of the time it is just heading for streaming anyway. Or a lot of the time they don't put a lot of heavy protection for it. Like Avatar, not Aang now, like Avatar, The People. That movie was nearly leaked at some point. I think it was The Way of Water, but it was nearly leaked because they were going to do the visual effects from 2 different studios.
No, that was the third one. It was the new one because the second one only had one digital effects company. The third one was the one I was like, okay, we gotta split it up because I remember seeing it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I like skimmed through to make sure, like, hang on, let me make sure this is like legit. And I stopped and I heard like, oh fuck, that's actual Stephen Lang in there, and the rest of them. So like, oh shit, it's the real movie. But no,
so yeah, I think that is where I think the real danger of, number one, not having multiple firewalls, and even besides that, having a lot of your media in local servers is very dangerous because the local servers are pretty much connected to the entire organization. Obviously, it's not a bottom-up thing, it's a top-down, but anything that is local can easily be remote accessed. And a lot of studios, because again, they're not like the latest tech companies, or they're not like intelligence agencies, they're not really clued up in how to prevent those kinds of attacks, because a lot of these kinds of attacks are they are the result of hackers being knowledgeable on how to infiltrate these apparently, secure servers. And I think the biggest catalyst for hackers deciding to refine their skills is purely from the Sony attack of 2015.
Yeah, that was big. It was around about the time the interview was dropping. And it was like there was that scene in there was 2 cuts of that movie. The original version that nobody saw, and then there was the edited version that we did see. Because in that original version, Kim Jong Un apparently had a gorier death. Like we actually saw his head explode in like a million pieces, but in the version that we saw, we just see him like go up in flames, and that's it. Apparently, like, that wasn't the only shit they changed, but it is what it is. And that movie was, just it. I look back on it and laugh, but in the moments, you could tell there was like some serious stress going on. Like, yo, man, is America and North Korea about to go at it over a Seth Rogen and James Franco movie?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Funny enough, even from that, hilarious, like, potential backlash, for me, the funniest thing that came out of it were the leaked emails between Kevin Feige to Amy Pascal, basically telling him that, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is shit, and you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done this, you should have done that. Basically, like, just telling her that, this is not good at all.
Yeah.
Like, this is not good.
I remember seeing the story.
I remember it said, it was like it's too depressing. Fix it. The chemistry between the actors is good, but I don't think it was wise to kill her off. And he was saying like Electro is too random to hate Spider-Man as much as he does. And he was getting
he went from liking him to hating him way too quickly. Yeah, and there was like some stuff in there about like, Andrew Garfield's a good actor, but his emotions go up and down because the story has him like going up and down emotionally and shit. So it's like, yeah.
Let me look for this.
I remember he told the story about how he like pitched the idea like, hey, why don't you like let us have Spider-Man and bring him to NCU? And apparently like Amy Pascal threw a sandwich at his head. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How old are you, lady?
It's crazy.
Yeah, but it shows like they're on good terms with each other. That they could like the fact that they talk, okay, that alone shows that they're cool with each other. The fact that person in charge of like Sony movies over there is talking with essentially the head of Marvel Studios shows that they're actually friends. Man, if only we had this level of cooperation with somebody over at WB, we might still have a DCEU. That's just my opinion. We might still have a DCEU if Kevin Feige knew a guy over at WB.
Yeah, it's funny to me because wasn't wasn't Kevin Feige a roommate for what's an Walter, man? It was someone in DC. I think it was now in comics.
Uh, was he what the guy who what was he a writer? Because there was a dude who like wrote. He like worked on Dark Knight. He worked on Man of Steel, and like he's been doing comic book shit for a while now. He worked on Blade. I can't remember his name though, but like he's been around. I don't think it's. I'm starting to realize it might not be that guy, but yeah. Thing, thing is, the fucking ridiculous thing, even when it happened, I was like, bro, why? Why did you say no? Because when when Warner Brothers announced that they were rebooting the universe and they were looking for a guy to basically be their Kevin Feige, they revealed that one of the names was Kevin Feige. And he said no. The day it happened, the day that announcement came out, until today, I ask, why the fuck would you say no? Like, bruh, you could have had Marvel and DC under the same umbrella. For as much as you champion having Fantastic Four and X-Men under, the MCU branch because now they're all in the same house, you could have had the Justice League in there.
This is the other guy. Feige, back in the day, they were still like, in college and stuff. He was roommates with Geoff Johns.
Yes, that guy. That guy.
Yeah, and Jeff had big pull in DC. I don't know what he's doing today, but back in the early DCU days, he had big pull. He was consulting in characters and character models and stuff like that. Like, and it's the fact that they both came up in the industry around the same time, and Feige's first like big break, so to speak, was on X-Men as a junior executive producer. Jeff himself would go on to have a very illustrious career over at DC, but for some reason, no one ever took it to heart that what I think we should put Geoff Johns in charge. I think this is the guy who needs to head like DC as a whole. Instead, he was the COO. He was a creative guy. He was never really given the full reins. He was president during the Zack Snyder days, but he still didn't have final pull because that was guys like Walter Hamada. It was that old guard that basically like shoved Ray out to burn. Out into the sun to crisp up and burn away. But a guy, and you have to look at them as nerds because they are so Feige potentially not as much purely because of who he is, and you see what kind of care he's taken lately, which is kind of lacking. But Geoff Johns, he is very much outspoken that he is a nerd first before he's any kind of DC executive. He loves the characters that he's responsible for. He loves every single character that he writes for, and he views them as like his children, and he has like a like he has a deep burning passion. But now when you look at Kevin Feige, Kevin is very corporate. And it's to the point where he's the guy who initiated that MCU and Marvel Comics synergy that people have come to hate extensively, especially for random things like making Kamala lose her big stretchy fist, and they've now synergized the big crystal hand, and all of that just stupid shit. A person like Geoff Johns could have been so good for DC at that moment in time. He could have done justice, no pun intended, to that universe in the same frequency, in the same way that Kevin Feige was doing justice to Marvel right after right after like the powers that be at Disney clutched the power from Ike Perlmutter and gave it to Feige fully. But it's unfortunate that Jeff was always like just a few steps below proper leadership. He's always a few steps below. He's not, if he's not in the chair in production, he's in the animation side. If he's not in the direct movie production side, he's in the TV production side. Like, he was always one step away from truly having the power to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate turn of events for the DC brand because a lot of its biggest successes were taking place when he was around. And as coincidental as it may appear, it is a direct result because the early success of the DCEU, with as derided as it is, it still made a bunch of money. Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel did have Geoff Johns on like writing credits, and Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises also had Geoff Johns in there. So DC's most successful period in the 2010s was a lot, it did have a lot to do with Geoff Johns. So to have him, taken out in the aftermath of that because, well, these movies he worked on didn't quite make the money we wanted them to, and just bringing in other writers, it's like, okay, that was a huge misstep because though they didn't make the money you wanted to, now it's making less and less and less money.
And you imagine, because I think right after the whole like Zack Snyder drama and stuff, and just the whole, I think as soon as the Snyder Cut chat started, that is like just after Johns had left, because Johns left, dude, it was so long ago, because I remember we were like fresh out of high school. He left in 2018. He stepped down as the president in 2018, leaving like the bulk of whatever they had in the pipeline to just kind of melt on, and whatever arch that pursued from that. But he, in a time that at least when he was around, things were slightly better for DC than they were when he was gone, and that's the biggest thing. The brand actually got worse.
Yeah, all those planned movies they had, the planned Batman movie fell apart. The Man of Steel sequel fell apart. Just the Joker and Harley movie had to be retooled into a Birds of Prey movie. It's like everything just fell to the wayside once that original trio of like Zack Snyder, Chris Nolan, and Geoff Johns just departed because everything just immediately went downhill. Because people forget that the DCEU started with Chris Nolan working on it with Man of Steel and BVS, and he was
I think it was that initial belief, given his involvement, because he was like consulting and stuff. People had thought that basically means that Bale is the Batman for the Superman.
Yeah.
Because why would you bring in the guy who did 3 Batman films like last year, did this 3rd one last year? Why would you bring him forward for a consulting gig on this movie? But obviously, that didn't happen. I guess even Bale didn't want that, which is fine. It's fine. He's very much like, it's fair for him to say no. He did 3 in a row. It's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was mad at him. Like, everyone understood that he was warranted a break. He really was.
Yeah, it's not like Daniel Craig and James Bond where it's like 3 movies in, dude is like, I would rather stick glass in my eye than play James Bond again. Like, I remember when that video came out where he said that shit. Like, one video he was like, I'd rather stick glass in my eye. Another video he was like, I'd rather slash my wrist. And then it was like 2019. They asked him again, like, hey, would you like to play Bond again? He's like, he's like, if they gave him a big chunk of money, he'd do it. Like, what? Yeah, right about that time, I was like, bruh, you seen this shit? Because you remember when dude was like this, that, and the third? And he was like, yep. Because you and me were talking about this shit. And you told me about the glass in the eye bit, and then I told you about the slash the wrist shit. It's like, this man is so dramatic. Like, bro, you're playing James Bond. Like, why are you talking about it like it's fucking torture or some shit? Like, what is going on? But yeah, man.
I honestly get it. Like, people have to understand that if you are in the process of doing a movie, especially a movie as big as James Bond, that is your whole year taken from you. And besides even just a year, you can't accept other work during that period. You have obligations. You have travel restrictions. You can't go too far. You can't film in the UK and then see your family in Cape Town. Can't do that. You have to be here for these rigorous days of shooting. You're shooting in the hot sun. You're in a trailer. You don't see your kids for 6 months out of the year. Like, you are essentially, like, you are jailed to this movie, including reshoots, because you also sign up for them. You are obligated, contractually obligated, to do reshoots, and the entire time, you can't even take your favorite role that you've been seeing being on the production table on and off for the past 15 years, and suddenly it arrives and you can't take it because you're under this movie.
Not
I
to mention all
understand
the
that
junkets
acting
and
is
press
easy.
events and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, acting is acting. You're not an engineer, you're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer. You're slaving away from 9 to 5 in a corporate sense. It is easier, purely on those metrics. But any other metric, it's time consuming, it's draining, it is physically draining, mentally draining. You will probably never want to do another movie like that ever again. I get it. But, all of that tough work, quote unquote, for what? For 10 million? I'd do that. It's fine. But for them, they reach a point where it's like,
The money
no
ain't
amount of
worth
money
it.
will
Yeah.
bring me back. But then, that's a lie. Because everyone has a price. RDJ is coming back for 100 million. Like, everything has a figure behind it. Like, yeah, you can hide behind noble words. You can. That's fine. You can hide behind noble words. This is my swan song. I want to give the character proper respect, and I'll never touch it again. Hey, so and so, do you want 75 million to come back? Yeah, sure, why not? Everyone has a price. Guaranteed. People like Evans, people like Hemsworth. I think Hemsworth might be getting the most, and I'll tell you why. They fucked up his last movie. They fucked up
He said
his
he did that interview
trilogy.
where he said he wanted a break from the character after Thor: Love and Thunder,
Exactly.
and yet now he's
Plus, he
back.
also got the early onset Alzheimer's thing because his dad has Alzheimer's, and he wanted to step back from acting to, number one, focus on his dad, and also do the specific health, proactive health steps to prevent Alzheimer's in himself, because they did say he is a candidate for it and stuff like that. It all happened in that weird Disney Plus TV show he had. He went like around the planet. I don't know if it was a planet or the country. I don't know. But it looked like he was retiring. I mean, why wouldn't you if you're worth like 100? It's fine. But if Marvel comes and knocking and says, "Hey, Chris, well, we know you fucked up your last movie, and we're sorry about that. I know you might not want to come back, but listen, man, you are the only guys. In fact, you are the only guy now from the original God. You can't bring Mark Ruffalo in because Ruffalo is still tied to Universal and stuff like that. But you're like one of the bigger players, and you're Thor. We're sorry you screwed up your last movie. Let's give you 115 million. We gave Downey 100. Don't worry, he's a chump. We want you, buddy. Don't worry. You are the ticket seller." They definitely had to butter him up to convince him to come back, because I think at the time, back in the day, he loved Taika, and then he realized, this guy might not be the best thing for my career right now, because he screwed up Thor 3. And obviously, he's not going to come back. Even he himself said they're not going to bring him back after that movie. So they definitely had to butter him up, at least with Downey. Downey got a beautiful swan song. He got a sacrifice, a snap. They did him beautifully. They did him beautifully. Him coming back is more of a, full love of the game. Full love of the game. He even said so on Joe Rogan that, it's never say never, but for now I'm done. And that Rogan interview was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was during
around about the time he was doing Doolittle. He was doing that movie Doolittle around about that time because it hadn't come out yet. He was still hyping it up.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he was definitely an easier person to convince than, Plus, I think also what happened with Downey was that when the Russos said that they were leaving Marvel to explore their own stuff, which again failed.
Yeah.
Like that movie with Chadwick Boseman, it didn't do too good. It wasn't a bad movie, but it just didn't do too good.
They also did those Netflix movies, so there's that, The Gray Man and Electric State. I haven't seen any of them, but they don't seem all that interesting.
I think Electric State is on a Chris Pratt, right?
Yeah.
That bombed, and not just like box office, but like reviews were apparently horrible because Pratt's a bad actor, and why did he get this role?
It's a streaming movie. So how does a streaming movie bomb? That shouldn't be because box office is tickets sold. Like, how the fuck does a movie on streaming bomb?
It was bad, dude. 14% Rotten Tomatoes, 5.9 on IMDb, 30% on Metacritic, and a lot of people were just dunking on Chris Pratt, and also like mostly him and sort of chemistry he had with Millie. Bad. I just remember like every video I saw on TikTok, it was not good, and I found okay, scroll, I don't care. I never saw a good video talking about it. So it does make sense why they came back to Marvel. They can only make somewhat good films when it comes to Marvel.
Yeah.
Green Man was a little bit better. I'm pretty sure I watched that one. Pretty sure I did.
Chris Evans, he had a mustache, right? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the one I was like.
Yeah. Oh, wait. They also did a movie for Amazon. It was Chris Evans and Ana de Armas.
It's not Extraction. It's not Extraction.
Extraction. I don't know. That was Extraction was Chris Hemsworth. Yeah. The one with Ana de Armas. It was Chris Hemsworth and Ana de Armas. I know it was them because randomly halfway through the movie, Anthony Mackie shows up, and then Sebastian Stan shows up.
Apple TV.
Oh yeah. That was it. I'm getting confused. There's so many bullshit streaming services, man. Fucking Apple TV. Yeah, Ghosted. That's what it was. It was.
Apple was doing like crazy moves in entertainment right now, like kind of like chess moves. Think of it this way: Apple TV, they're responsible for Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso apparently is like, the white man's what? It's like the white man. What they say? There was a word they used. I'm pretty sure they said it was like the white man's Moesha or something, but it was like white men. Yeah, like white men love Ted Lasso. They love Ted Lasso like they like Oprah, like black women love Oprah. It's like they just love the show. It's weird, but it's Ted Lasso. It's Severance. Severance is very good. Yeah. I watched Severance. I don't watch Ted Lasso, but I watch Severance. It's very good. The black guy.
I saw the porn parody.
Pretty sure he's in Brand New Day. Pretty sure, yeah, he was cast in Brand New Day.
Yeah, with the mustache. that guy, yeah.
So far, we have Ted Lasso, Severance, critically acclaimed stuff. F1. That is from Apple. That's from Apple. They're doing very interesting things in Hollywood that people don't really know that it is Apple until they see that it's Apple. I don't really understand what their end goal is, because at some point they had a deal with Disney, but I think it fell through because they weren't making any kind of specific content. They also have, their apparently, I haven't seen anything about it yet, but they have an animation division that they plan on opening because of the thing with the Peanuts specials that they were filming.
Wait a minute, Charlie Brown? Those Peanuts? Like Snoopy and them?
Yeah, it's not too weird because this is so random. Apple signs a lot of licensing agreements with companies in order to include those companies on their products. Random case in point, Apple Watch faces have Snoopy animatics for different hour changes, and obviously that's licensed. What isn't licensed because of their history together is Toy Story. There are, since the first Apple Watch from about 2015, there has always been a Toy Story themed watch face. So Woody, Jessie, Old Prospector, Buzz, anyone. And those have always been in Apple Watches. Obviously, Pixar and Disney have a very unique relationship. Obviously, Steve Jobs was the CEO of Pixar and then sold Pixar to Disney. So theirs is a lifelong agreement, a lifelong, vocal contract. But what they're doing with Peanuts stems from an already pre-existing licensing thing that goes back to their Apple Watches, where they have a lot of Peanuts-themed watch faces. They might be periodical, like for Christmas and the holidays, but that's purely why they're now in the TV production side of it. They're just getting more of that licensing agreement. But yeah, Apple is making some pretty interesting waves of television. Very interesting. They're producing a lot of high quality stuff, but it's not as critically acclaimed as one would assume it is. In terms of, it doesn't have the popularity. It's good. It's quality, but it's not popular.
It's not like prestige TV, like HBO.
Exactly. HBO and it's probably the big players now. I think it's purely HBO, Amazon, and
maybe Paramount, because they got those.
Does Warner do TV these days?
What?
Yeah, Paramount definitely, because Paramount is doing the Ted series, right?
Ted. Oh yeah. The bear. Yeah, and they also got those. What is it? The Whetstone. What? Yellowstone, yeah, yeah, yeah. The Yellowstone
Yellowstone. Yeah,
universe. Fucking, I still can't believe
yeah,
that's a thing. The Yellowstone universe,
yeah.
man.
Everyone was trying to do a universe. I think now we're in the era where we have realized that's pretty stupid. But for the for the longest time, there was a constant attempt at it. There was a constant attempt.
Yeah,
But at least at this point, we've learned our lesson.
yeah. Not everything needs to be a shared universe, bro. We don't need a. Okay, okay. I've been saying this, since the jump. Universal doing a Universal Monsters shared universe was not a bad idea. It was just badly executed.
The
DC's,
Dark Universe.
yeah, yeah, the Dark Universe. That wasn't a bad idea. It was just badly done. And fucking, I think that was the biggest failure. That was the one that made people stop and go, "Whoa, let's reconsider." Because up until then, it had been nothing but success. We'd seen Warner Brothers with the DCEU. We'd seen Disney with the MCU, and that was really it. Those were the two big shared universes. So all anyone knew was success. But then came the failure of the Dark Universe, and suddenly it's like,
Mm.
ooh, let's pump the brakes here. Let's
Yeah,
hang
maybe we
on.
should put too much trust in this.
Yeah, except for Sony, who waited
I mean,
until,
Sony,
man, Sony and their Spider-Man
you have
villain
to at
universe.
least give Sony props for just their tenacity.
Yeah,
They had Venom. They had, I mean, obviously, it's 3 Venoms at this point.
yeah.
I say that as if I haven't watched every single one, but I'm pretty sure I have. Maybe I slept with the third one. I don't even know. There's 3 Venoms. There's a Craven the Hunter. There's a Adam Webb. Like, there's there's a world there. It's just not cohesive, but there's a world. It's out there for everyone to watch.
Oh yeah.
And it's loosely, I guess, loosely connected to Andrew's world. Loosely, but
Can't
whatever.
forget Morbius. He's in there
And
too.
people forget the more.
Uh,
Pretty sure I ended up watching them more, but I was too high to focus on it. I was just staring at that guy, Matt Smith, just scary looking human. He's the real Morbius. What the fuck? He's very. I think he should be in the MCU.
just
I
not as
think
that
he
guy.
should be morph. He should be like a
Really?
morph kind of guy, just like a real creep.
But
I mean,
Morph
morph
is.
isn't a creep. I like morph,
Hmm.
but he should just be a creep, but like a funny creep. He just has that face. I loved him in Morpheus. He's just a real creepo, I think. But yeah, but then at the same time, though, this is exactly why it's very conflicting to work for a studio, because you can either be part of the best parts of the studio, which is the animated division, Spider-Verse, or you can be part of the worst part of the studio, which is movies, actual, live action theatrical films.
And it's the same studio, which is fucking weird.
It is unfortunate because depending on your answer, oh, where do you work? Oh, Sony's movie division. Which part? I prefer to say which part. Live action, boom,
Yeah.
you suck. If you work in animation, that is a chip. Like that is real street cred. I'm in Sony Animation. It's no big deal. But it's the fact that a studio can be responsible for so many good things, so many bad things. It's just funny.
It's
baffling. I mean, Disney is there as well. Let's not make Sony the part of the joke too much, but it's the fact that you can release so many consecutive stinkers and one banger, and ironically, that one banger is off the same IP that you suck at in live action. So it's a bit confusing because it's like, well, why can this work in animation, but it doesn't work in live action? Like, what are you doing wrong?
I think what really fucked over these movies ultimately is the whole shared rights situation, because these movies were, it's no secret, these movies were made because Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man, and every 5 years they have to do some Spider-Man related property to keep those rights. That's why this universe exists. They didn't even hide that. They have openly stated in the past, we have to do something Spider-Man related or else we lose the rights. That's why these Sony villain movies exist. And you can't build a universe out of within 5 years we have to do something. You can't
It sucks
properly,
too because
yeah.
Sony, obviously through their tentpole Columbia, they make good movies.
Yeah.
They made they made Blade Runner 2049. They made Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They made Django. They
I thought that was
what's a
Miramax. I thought that was Miramax. With like Harvey Weinstein and them.
association.
Oh, yeah,
Columbia is
yeah,
always
yeah,
the
yeah.
main player because they're
Oh,
under
yeah,
Sony.
yeah, they distributed movies. All right.
Columbia Pictures, they know how to make good movies. They know how to make good movies, and they have good quality directors. The problem seems to be when they're doing superhero stuff. Just strange, because how do you fuck up superhero stuff when you've got good quality and good directors, cinematographers, screenwriters? But again, you can't. It's pretty much the fact that you can't move these people in between projects, like they're not interchangeable. That's the biggest problem. A lot of skill sets is not interchangeable between different mediums. So same people who made like a Blade Runner can't now make you a beautiful, futuristic, Spider-Man 2099 live action film. They can't. Because they will inevitably fuck it up somehow. Either because of studio interference, because it seems like when it's always superhero related, there's a lot of interference, and purely, I would say, while other movies might get artistic liberties because they're just regular, either, they're like sequels, legacy sequels, or adaptations or whatever, where those stories can have directors that can run wild with the creativity, there's always some sort of mandate for what they want in a superhero movie. In this case is Spider-Man. There's always a specific mandate for what they need to have and need to see in a live action Spider-Man film, where, compared to something more, grounded, like, like a, I don't know, fucking Spectre or Quantum of Solace, whatever.
The
That
director has more say.
exactly. So yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird how they can really come up with good movies, good rated movies, but at the same time fuck up something that is so simple in theory. Like Spider-Man is so simple. Like you compare like the world of Jumanji, the story of Jumanji is more complex in execution than a Spider-Man movie. Yet somehow they can make a decent Jumanji film and like a decent Tintin film, but they can't get Spider-Man right.
Well, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Distributing, yeah. I was going to say, like, wait, wasn't Tintin Universal? Oh, yeah, right. Like, I forget that studios, like, co-produce shit now and then. But yeah, you're right. It's just the mix of the stuff they put out and that works and the stuff that doesn't work. It's not like you look at who makes these movies and you're like, this movie was made by a bunch of hacks. You're right. A lot of it is studio interference. Like looking at the director of Craven. He's not a bad director. He's directed action movies before. Good ones. JC Chandor is not a bad director. You look at, you know, fucking Ruben something. He directed the first Venom movie. He also directed Gangster Squad. He's no slouch. So it's clearly not a thing on that side of this movie is terrible because the guy behind the camera doesn't know what he's doing. It's clearly something else going on. And more often than not, it does tend to be a case of the studio took one look at what the director did and then wrote a bunch of notes for all the changes they wanted made. And the movie ends up suffering because Mark Webb, as inexperienced as he was with Amazing Spider-Man only being his second movie, did a pretty decent job. And people walked away from that saying, well, it wasn't, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but it was still good. Yet when it came to Spider-Man 2, all of a sudden, the writing is bad. The characters are emotionally inconsistent. Story beats begin and end without reason. It's like, what happened to this dude? Did he suddenly just become terrible at his job when before he was doing okay? No, there's been several interviews and videos breaking down like there was clear interference done here. Even Andrew Garfield said as much that when he did get the script for Spider-Man 2, he thought it was good. And then changes came. And then cuts started happening to fit runtimes. Because more often than not, what will happen is a movie will get made. The script is written, X amount of pages means X amount of minutes on screen, and the studio will order cuts so that it's a shorter runtime. Because shorter runtime means it can play in theaters more often, and thus bring in more money. And you can't do that without sacrificing a lot of the story too. Same thing happened with Batman vs Superman. That was a 3-hour movie, no doubt. Zack Snyder on purpose made a 3-hour movie, but Warner Brothers cut it down to 2.5 hours. Problem is, when Zack Snyder makes a 3-hour movie, it's 3 hours not because there's just 2 hours and an hour of bullshit. It's 3 hours because all of the plot beats take 3 hours to roll out, and if you just slash 30 minutes, there's going to be a chunk of the movie that doesn't make sense. And that's what happened. With it wasn't until we got the Ultimate Edition that we saw like, oh, that's what that 30 minutes was. Oh, so that's why this happened, and now it's overall a better movie. It's unfortunate, but it does happen, and that's pretty much a lot of the time what happened with the Sonyverse films, because you see a lot of these movies had deleted scenes where characters were fleshed out, story beats were better explained, and just overall made the film better. Even in Amazing Spider-Man, there are so many scenes, deleted scenes that have Kurt Connors and flesh him out as a character, and I'm like, why wasn't this in the movie? Even with Amazing Spider-Man 2, when Peter meets his dad at the gravesite, same thing. I'm like, why wasn't this in the film? This is a really good scene. But like, not just story-wise, but damn, Andrew Garfield can act. He is acting his ass off here. But it's a deleted scene, so what you gonna do? It's like, it is what it is. I mean, let me step off the soapbox for a minute and just let you say your piece, man. Like, you get what I'm saying, right?
I get it, man. I do. I think, the last thing you said right now, just say it again real quick.
What? Wait, where did I lose
The
you?
last.
The last
No,
thing.
no, no. I wanna piggyback off of your point.
Well, it's a deleted scene, so what you gonna do?
Now, here's the thing. A lot of the times, this seems to be mostly a Warner issue specifically. As much as there's like time and effort wasted within making a film, and either scrapping it, like you're either gonna shave off a couple of minutes. That means you're either going to remove certain scenes that make sense or certain exposition. A lot of the time, yes, it is to fit the bill of the number one, projected runtime, and number two, cinemas have to know the exact runtime of a movie, because it interferes with other movies. A lot of that does come down to, if they really, really, really wanted to, they could simply make the movie longer by removing parts of, number one, the first act and the middle act, because a lot of the times the movies start getting cut is in the last part, where there's a lot of action and a lot of things are missing. Particularly with Zack Snyder projects, a lot of parts that do get cut, even when he did things for Netflix and stuff like that, a lot of the scenes that do get removed for runtime end up really occurring during either the climax, final act, basically the third act. But the problem that movies do a lot of the times is that they spend so much time building up a plot and having a very small resolution runtime. And if you look at Justice League, what Joss Whedon did was he weaved together a lot of elements from Zack Snyder's original filming, added in humorous scenes that he had, where Snyder had a lot of dialogue and expository information. Just like when we go to the Amazon, when we go to the Amazonian island, the Mascara, and they speak about the mother box and stuff like that. In the Snyder, in the Justice cut, you have a lot of humorous dialogue pertaining to, oh, it's been a while, are we a team? I think we're looking for a team. We're building a team, and you kind of, it's the right way, but also the wrong approach, because yes, if you want the battle to be longer, you need to cut from the start. But what you cut from the start should not interfere with the story. It should strengthen the story because of the runtime that you want to add on to. But you can't sacrifice parts of it. So when studios sacrifice parts of the, like the very, not very end, but when they sacrifice part of the third act and the climax, they're robbing viewers from seeing what the intended vision for the fight scenes, for the choreography, for the progression, for the actual, end, like whatever end resolution that they get to. You rob them of that. And with Justice League, what was weak was that Superman, number one, resurrected. Number two, suddenly he comes back 30 minutes later after not seeing him. Number three, you have these people who are pretty useless against him. Now, granted, that's not Justice's fault. It is kind of the same thing that we see within the actual cut. But at the same time, we see a lot more of Clark, and that kind of reinforces that this is somewhat tied to him. It is his fault because his death, catapulted what would be the call to action for Darkseid and stuff like that. But now, what studios would rather do now, what they would rather do if a movie is either way too long, way too short, is instead of salvaging it, instead of trying to do reshoots or trying to, skim unimportant bits, if a movie is just way too long to do anything to it, they would much rather scrap it. And a lot of the times that gets reported in the media as, oh, the movie is in production hell, it's in post production hell, it's in reshoot hell, till eventually they say the movie is on hold, till eventually they say that it's postponed indefinitely, till eventually they say that the movie has been indefinitely put on hold and will not likely see a release date. That is what happened to Bad Girl, and the reason why that happened is so they could have a big tax write-off for their end of year financial report. And that tax write-off in itself gained them much more money than they would have made had the movie come out, gone into theaters, stayed in the circuit, gotten a box office amount of money. But the problem is, you can't always do a tax write-off with movies as a theater because number one, it does get fishy. You know, it is grounds for investigation, I guess, especially when you are looking at number one, what is it? It's unfair business practice or whatever the case is.
Improper
Number
business
two,
practice. Yeah.
you don't want fans kind of getting wind of the way you're treating the IP that you're supposed to be creating with care and love and attention. WB was pretty much saved by the news that James Gunn had been, obviously he was rehired to do Guardians 3, but then he left again to explore his own career at that point. They were saved by the news that Gunn would be coming back. And then, not coming back per se, but he had had an interest in DC, so he finally followed that interest, and it took him to the ultimate chair of being a CEO unexpectedly. People mostly thought that he'd be just like a director for a movie, but he ended up being the whole studio. Granted, there's a caveat: he is co-CEO with Peter Safran, but from that point on, the whole Batgirl controversy, which again was very huge when it first came out, because as much as you would like to think, a lot of DC fans, like true DC fans, are not misogynists. What did come out recently with Supergirl was an unfortunate thing where a lot of dude bros and a lot of chuds are like, they're saturating the superhero and comic book spaces with pretty much the same kind of like toxicity and toxic masculinity that we had for Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. But there there will always be specific chuds within these spaces, and obviously they bullied Millie Alcock, but she was fine. She made it out. But back then, a lot of people rallied behind Batgirl, not specifically because of Batgirl herself, but because of Michael Keaton and Brendan Fraser, because those are the big names that were in the movie, especially for Brendan Fraser, because that was supposed to be one of his career revivals. So people very much rallied behind that movie, and to this day are still campaigning to get released, but it's never gonna get released. It might at some point, but in the foreseeable future, unless it reaches the same levels of hype as the Snyder Cut, which I doubt it ever will, because Snyderists don't care about that movie. It's about a different Batman. It's about a woman who's Batman. They don't give a fuck. But a lot of people genuinely did care about it, and the fact that it was scrapped for like a $300 million, tax write-off, it was unfortunately, used. Some say it was created for that intention, that it was never supposed to come out. Pretty much like what Marvel did in 1994 with the Fantastic Four. Like it was never supposed to come out. It was a write-off, and ultimately, they had made it so they don't lose, the actual rights. But yeah, it was pretty much that thing that happened. But ultimately, people should be thankful that a lot of movies make it out into the cinema, because studios generally are not afraid to scrap film. They've scrapped a lot of films for less, and a lot of the time, that tax write-off is hitting. It is hitting like crack. So, I mean, not that Blade was, but Blade could have easily have fallen into that trap had they tried to make it, but they didn't even attempt to make it. So it never fell within that territory. Armor Wars definitely did, by the way, because
Oh,
Armor
yeah.
was filmed, but the bulk of what they'd filmed was very incomplete, so they scrapped it. This time around, apparently it's being reworked into a pilot for I'm not sure if it's a pilot yet or if it's a movie, but I had last heard it was being reworked into a pilot for a Vision. I think it was Vision Quest. I'm not so sure, but it has Star-Lord. It has Star-Lord in it. So yeah, it's just very strange. But yeah, we're lucky to get as much as we do as it is.
It's still just, it's very bizarre to me that all this is happening anyway. Because this is, it's ridiculous. Because like you said, with Blade, it could have easily fallen into that thing of, oh, we got far enough into production and oh, we just couldn't crack it, so we're just gonna make it a tax write off. That never even got off the ground. It's just, there's a whole, I mean, you put it succinctly way back. You said like there's a whole decade where they just wasted that man's time. He could have been doing so much shit. Because which was proven because once they took Blade off the slate, he immediately got on Jurassic Park Rebirth. Would prove that it's his star power didn't stall because Hollywood didn't want him. It stalled because he was stuck waiting on a movie that wasn't coming.
Yeah, and I don't know if yesterday or Monday, but at some point, Feige released a statement like he felt like a huge dork, a loser.
Yeah, he said loser. I remember that.
Yeah, a huge loser for not developing Blade when they had the time, because he claims they were inundated with too much Marvel TV and Disney Plus. But like, dude, that's really not an excuse because I have so many other executive producers. Like, yes, you are the CEO of Marvel Entertainment, but that doesn't mean that you can't delineate. It doesn't mean that you can't tell, motherfucking Louis Disposito, because you see his name everywhere. You can't tell me that you can't get any other person to run point on a Blade development. You can't tell me that. These motherfuckers had time to do a fucking TV show. They had time to do a Moon Girl cartoon that 7-year-olds watch. But they didn't have time to fucking do some sort of treatment for Blade. I just find it hard to believe.
They had time to do 2 seasons of an I Am Groot cartoon. Like 2 seasons. But we can't give Blade a movie.
It's crazy. Yeah. Ultimately, I think it does come down to the messed up slate. I think we're being unfair slightly, but not fully. When we speak about cartoons and side projects, if the main issue is slate organization, because what they're like purely lost on is where they fit what in and where. Because the Russos had come out shortly after the first Doomsday teaser. They were like, oh yeah, no, Doomsday is a direct sequel to Endgame. Well, how does that work if you've had about like 7 years of other projects and plot points? Because obviously you need to have watched those other plot points because holy shit, Sam Wilson's Captain America. Holy shit, Thor has a daughter. When did he fuck? Holy shit, there's no more this person, that person. Holy shit, why is this big guy in the Avengers? Isn't the government shit like fucking Stranger Things? Like, obviously you need to have watched every other thing before that. But them phrasing it as it's like a direct sequel, it kind of undermines and undercuts what the past 7 years have been. But at the same time, they're just running away from the past 7 years because it was a 7-year stint of bullshit and disorganization. And in that time, they struggled to give Shang-Chi a sequel. They struggled to make a sequel for the Eternals. They struggled to give Hulk a proper story centered around him, just him. They struggled to give Thor a third movie. Like, they gave him a third movie, but it sucked. Like, there was so much disorganization and mismanagement. You would think Feige is doing this alone, but he has so many people. So it's very confusing how hard they managed to suck over the past 7 years. That's the reason why a lot of us are like too focused on Marvel to begin with. Like they lost us. They really lost us along the way. And along the way, they had a lot of broken promises. You know, we haven't got a Vision Quest. We haven't got a WandaVision sequel. We got 2 seasons of Loki. That's fine, but they also botched up the whole Kang thing. That had to re-scramble and run points on developing. They had time to scrap Kang Dynasty, rework a new script, call it Doomsday, then bring in the Russo brothers, and then film Doomsday. They had time to do that, time and resources to do that, but they didn't have time to make a Blade movie in that time. And Kang Dynasty was still locked in as early as 2024. Fuck Marvel. They knew what they were doing.
There it was, and there it goes. Another episode of Moonlight Kingdom Podcast. And this one, episode 112. 112 episodes in and 300 subscribers gained. Just want to say thank you to all those who subscribed over the years. Appreciate y'all. Everyone who leaves a like, I appreciate you too. And as always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all them nice things. This has been Moonlight Kingdom Podcast. Have the day you wish to have.